Good morning. Very excited to be here again. I was here last year and it was a lot of fun. So thanks to Jama for inviting me to come back again. That means I did okay last time. So I have to try to do it again this time. So he will invite me to come next year. Here's my book. My book has taught me some very important lessons. The first lesson is that people like to pay for free things, because a good part of my book actually came from the blog, and the blog is free and anybody can read it. And when Wiley said they want to make it into a book, I thought that they were joking, because why would people pay for things that are free? And it turns out that people pay all over the world for free things, which is a very interesting lesson for me to learn. The other thing is, people like to read books, which is a very big surprise to me, because I have an RSS reader, and that's where I read everything. But it turns out people like reading books, which is pretty incredible. But the other great thing is that the book is, all the money that I make from the book are donated to charity, Doctors Without Borders and Smile Train. And the book has been out for maybe 18 months, 20 months, and the book has raised $60,000. That's how much money I have made from the book. And it's all donated to charity, which is incredible that you can make money from blogging. It's not a lot of money, but you can make some money from blogging, which is great. I work at Market Motive. I spend time at Google. My daughter likes to draw these doodle for Google all the time. That's my daughter Damini. My son Chirag. He just turned 4 2 days ago. And 5. And I think he's growing too fast. I want him to slow down, but he doesn't slow down. So this talk is very is the kind of talk that I normally don't do, which is a lot of my talk go with the name of my blog. It's simple things, easy things you can do to make money or to improve revenue, reduce cost, and do all these things from your websites. And my talk today is I try to make things exciting and easy and simple for people to understand. That's sort of what I tend to do a lot. But my talk today is not. It's a very tough talk, and it's very forward-looking. And as I was trying to prepare all the slides, I personally felt depressed and how the challenges that we tend to face and how far we have to go. So you have to bear with me. It's a very different thing than what I tend to do normally, but there is hope at the end of the rainbow, if you will. So I want to do 3 different things. And the first one is actually, before you think about what the future for analytics is, or where we're going and what challenges we face, I think that regardless of what ends up happening in the future, you have to realize there are sort of 3 or 4 very, very big business and organization challenges that web analytics faces. And I think regardless of where we end up, this will be true. So I want to start with that. And I want to go into the bulk of my talk is to sort of stretch your brain about what kind of challenges we face in analytics, and why is it that our life is so miserable? It's because it is very miserable to some extent. And then the last part of the talk is some of my thinking around what is going to come, what's going to happen in the future, or in the near future. It's very hard to predict the future, but in the near future, what will happen? So those are the 3 parts. It's actually getting very hard to make money on web analytics. It is getting harder with every day. It's interesting that most companies are trying to figure out how to cut costs and not spend money. And it is very hard for vendors to make money. And a lot of people think that this is because of free web analytics tools, from Google and Yahoo. But I don't tend to think that the problem with making money in web analytics is related to having these kinds of tools for free. Because having access to a tool is only one part of the entire equation. So why is it that it's so hard for companies to take money out and give it to Omniture or WebTrends or all these other companies? Or why is it that people don't tend to appreciate data and analytics more? It's not because of free tools. I think that the number one biggest problem that we tend to face, and the reason we won't pay for tools, is for the most part, analytics sits sort of outside the house on the side somewhere. It's very, very common. I think if you think about that as the entire business, that probably is the website. And for most companies, website tends to be still a side hobby. Well, except for Fernando. His website is his business. So he's all fine. But for most large companies, the web tends to be a sideshow. It's something that's happening on the side. And they don't take to take the web very, very seriously. And then the fact that this is sitting in a silo somewhere means that you tend to appreciate it a lot less than you would. The second thing is that it's sort of a data problem that we tend to face as people who tend to do analytics. Is you have all of the rest of the data for the company, and people spend literally thousands and hundreds and thousands and millions of dollars in putting all the data together for the company. But web analytics tends to sit on the side somewhere. And the web analytics data sits in some other system. It's probably with an IT guy in a dungeon downstairs. Nobody cares about him. And this translates into the fact that it is very hard for really, really senior managers in company to figure out that this is something of value. So that is another big problem. The biggest problem, I think, is this one. It's the biggest problem we tend to find. The reason that we're not making more money is that there is a lack of any perceived ROI from analytics. And we tend to report this kind of data. All of you report all this data today. And the problem is nobody except you cares about this data. Nobody cares about how many visits come and bounce rates and time and page views. All this is very difficult to take this data and aggregate and translate it into the company appreciating the ROI. So I will tell you a quick story. So I don't have time to write. And so I will go to my wife, who is my boss, and I will beg her to let me write at 3 o'clock in the night. It's the only time I have. And the first trick I try, because she would tell me to go to sleep. And I would say, do you know I'm very important? And then she says, go to sleep. She doesn't care. Then I try something else. And I said, did you realize that last month, 73,000 people read my blog from 176 countries? So I give her data. Think of how many countries people read the blog. Even Somalia, I have 3 readers from Somalia. And so I give her this data. And then she says, go to bed. Because the data doesn't translate into anything. So then I tried the third thing. Is for my goal, for my blog, then I sit down, I figure out what my goals are. I have no advertising on the blog. I don't ask you to buy my book. I just write, and that's it. I would just want you to read it. So it's very hard for me to figure out what the goals of the blog are. So I've created 4 goals, right? These are important to me. So the first goal is like all posts, and it's very important because if you read that page, it's very easy for you to find other things you're looking for. It's just a nice, organized listing of all the posts I've written. So if you come there and you have a question, you can quickly find what you want. And that's very important because I figured out that if you read 2 posts I've written, you will be convinced of my greatness. It's a very important goal. So okay, I track it. And then I track how many people read my About page. For no other reason, it makes me happy. If you read my About page, it makes me happy. So, okay, that's a goal. And then the next 2 are very important. So I do a lot of speaking engagements around the world. And I list them on this page because, these, when I speak at a conference, other people will come and attend the conference. And then I will ask for the conference organizer to list everything, so it's there. And then the last one is, actually my most important goal for my blog is to get RSS subscribers. I actually don't care about any other metric for my blog. I care about RSS subscribers. It's because to me, RSS subscribers are the ultimate form of permission marketing. It's like you're going to pull any content I have from me. I don't have to do anything. So I track that because I think it's, how many people have, Seth Godin wrote a book, Permission Marketing, many years ago. You should read it, it's a great book. That's why I track that goal. And that's how many signups were there in the last month. In total, I have 21,000 feed subscribers. So it's a very important goal. Now the thing is, I have figured out what these goals are, but I've also quantified the value of each goal. It's very important. So the other day we did an email list, and we purchased qualified email addresses for analytics. And each email each email address cost $4. So each qualified email address for analytics, if you want to send some marketing campaigns, costs $4. So then I use that to figure out what is the value of these goals. I have 21,000. It's easy for me to quantify the value because I know how many subscribers I have. I know how much is my conversion rate for people who come from my conference and sign up for a conference. So they will come from my blog and sign up for the conference. I know how much the conference cost. So I can compute the value of every click. It's $5. Every click on my blog to one of these conferences the revenue is $5. So I compute all that back. So I moved away from trying to tell my boss that I'm great. I moved away from telling her how many visitors I have, because it doesn't care. What I tell her now is, you have to let me blog in the night, because last month we made 26,000 fake dollars. And then she says, work harder. She doesn't ask me to go to sleep. Very, very, very few people in the web analytics community end up doing that. We all tend to think that we are great because we have data. Very few people actually go through the exercise to figure out what is the quantified economic value that is generated from the website back to their business. I think this is the single biggest lesson I have learned. If you can tell people what is the outcome. And the thing is, all this revenue comes back to me not directly from the blog. It comes from different ways. But it is revenue that comes back to me. And because very few people tend to do this, it's very hard for the business to then go back and say, yes, here's a check for $300,000 you can send to WebTrends. Or, yes, we should hire another analyst because I know exactly how much ROI there exists in my company. It's a very, very, very important reason why web analytics businesses are in such trouble today. Right? And of course, the last problem that businesses face is they don't invest in people. is the biggest problem. You all know my rule and my fundamental belief that at the end of the day, people make a difference to your data. Your data can exist and do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter what tool you have. And very few people end up investing in people on your website. And that's a big problem, very, very big problem. The larger the company, the more money it pays for web analytics tools, the fewer people it has. This is the stupidest thing on the planet. They will easily cut a check for several $100,000 to a web analytics vendor, but refuse to hire a consultant who can help them find insights from that data. And if they can't find insights, there is no way that they can appreciate the value of the data. So for the rest of the talk, I want to focus on challenges we tend to face. But you have to realize that until these four interesting things are taken care of, it doesn't actually matter how many tools exist in the marketplace. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. At a fundamental root level, you have to solve those four problems. You don't solve that, you're screwed. It doesn't really matter who you are and what you want to do. So, I'm going to focus a lot on tools and data. And why is it that it is so hard today to make sense of all this data that we have access to? And the number one reason is that we have very dumb data. It's very unintelligent data. So here's a good example. I personally grew up in the world of ERP and CRM systems. So very large Oracle, Sybase, Siebel, massive data warehouses. And the interesting thing is, if you have access to all this data, it's not a lot first, but then you can find this much insights from the data. And the great thing about not having access to data is you can blame anything on not having data.